Hi, Joey Olney here from Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers. Today I'm talking with Karl Klassen, who works for Avalanche Canada. Good morning, Karl.
Hey, Joey.
One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to one of you people today, of course, we have this avalanche warning going on here in the Cariboo and the North Rockies. And yesterday, the warning level was at orange for the Cariboos and red for the North Rockies. So I have the impression from what I'm hearing that a lot of people are planning to come here today to go snowmobiling. So I'd like to get you to talk about the snowfall that's coming, the snowfall we just had, the conditions you expect right now, and how much worse they'll get.
Yeah, I think the place to start maybe is your mention of the danger ratings. Danger ratings are an average of a very large region. The Cariboos is tens of thousands of square kilometers. The Cariboos have also been pretty data sparse this winter. We haven't been getting a lot of information, so it's often difficult for us to tell exactly what's going on. So when you look at those danger ratings, it's not applicable to any given slope in the area. It's kind of the whole region as an entirety. So that danger rating applies to tens of thousands of square kilometers, and you need to do some observations and make some decisions about which slopes are appropriate within that region given the danger rating. And yeah, the danger rating is a little lower in the Cariboo, a little higher in the North Rockies. Has to do something with the incoming weather, and it has to do with the sensitivity of the snowpack that we have right now. That said, there's certainly signs that the Cariboo snowpack is quite sensitive to triggering. I think in the North Rockies, we're going to see natural avalanches, which is why you see the red high danger rating. But I think in the Cariboos, we're going to probably see more like probably fewer natural avalanches and more human triggering going on if people start going into the Cariboos instead of the North Rockies and they're not careful there. So that's kind of the starting point for the discussion. We have to be careful that we don't take those danger ratings and say, oh, it's less hazardous on this slope because the danger rating for the entire region is lower.
Since Wednesday night here, we've had about 40 centimeters or better of snow in Wells. It's very powdery, very light. It's a bluebird right now. The sun's coming up, but we know that's not going to stay. I'm just wondering in the future too, how can we sort of get this data to you, these observations that some of us who do have mountain experience and know what's going on? Because to me, the signs I'm seeing are quite volatile snowpack here. Although I can't speak for the rest of the Cariboo. We've certainly had a lot in this region the last 2 days.
Well, our traditional data sources are the commercial operators, highways, railways, heli skiing, cat skiing parks, places like that. We don't have a lot of highways crossing the Cariboos and we have many railways crossing the Cariboos. So we don't really have access to those operations which are still going. And many of the commercial recreation operations like snowmobiling or guides and cat skiing guides and heli skiing guides are not operating this winter because of COVID, or if they are operating, they're not operating nearly as much. So that data stream from the commercial professional sector is really dried up this winter. People can help us by going to avalanche.ca or by downloading the Avalanche Canada app onto your phone and using the Mountain Information Network to send us the information or observations that they're seeing in the field. You don't have to be highly trained. You don't have to be an expert. You can do something really simple, like take a couple of photos of avalanches that you're seeing or what the weather's doing or the wind blowing. Even if you see cracking or something like that around your sled or around your skis as you're traveling in the backcountry, taking photos of that. Post the photo with a few lines of text. If you're doing it in the field with your phone, it's automatically located for you. And even if the location isn't really super accurate, like if you get home and you're not exactly sure where you were, just drop the pin in the valley that you were in, drop the pin in the general location. And that'll give us an idea of what the conditions are in those places. And it'll help us make that forecast more accurate, more timely, and it'll help the forecasters quite a bit in giving people the information they need to help plan their trips. So the Mountain Information Network at avalanche.ca is the best way for people to get information to us if they're seeing anything.
We just had 40 centimeters of fresh snow here, but Environment Canada doesn't issue us a snowfall warning, right? So there's this, and the amount of snow we had this week, I mean, most people on planet Earth have never seen anything like it, right? So to me, and then they just called a snowfall warning for the Peace for 10 centimeters tonight. So we have these gaps because of the wilderness in which we don't know what's happening with, say, wind events and tornado events or fires or avalanches or these kinds of things, right? So we're trying to make our group, we have 6,000 people, and sometimes we do get these kind of photos. So what we will do is encourage people to send them to you as well and more actively participate in the process of data collection and the science of it. How long have you worked for Avalanche Canada, Karl?
I've worked for Avalanche Canada since 2004, and I'm also a professional mountain guide. I guide in the wintertime. I'm not guiding this year because of COVID, but I guide cat skiing in the wintertime. So I've been around for a while, and I've seen a lot of different circumstances and situations. And what you're talking about is, it's not uncommon that, you know, one part of a region or one part of the province will get a significant amount of snow, different wind patterns, different temperatures than others. And the weather forecast doesn't always pick it up because, you know, weather forecast is often not accurate, especially when you go out more than a couple of days in the mountains. And
well, especially
our avalanche forecasts are based on the weather forecast, right? So if the weather forecast is off a bit, our avalanche forecast will be off a little bit. So we update our forecasts every morning if required. We issue in the afternoon at 4:30 for the following day. And then the next morning, we take a look and see whether the weather actually did what the forecast said it was going to do overnight. And if it looks like it didn't, then we change and modify and update the forecast. And that's another place where even if you're sitting in town and the weather forecast for yesterday was 10 centimeters and you're looking out your window and seeing 40, do a min post. Tell us that, you know, I'm sitting in the cafe looking out the window and there's 3 times as much snow as the weather forecast said was going to be in town. And that helps us in the morning figure out whether there's something going on that we should change the forecast. And that's exactly what happened in the Rockies. You know, in the Rockies, it didn't look like there was going to be a significant problem there. We knew the layer that is a problem exists in the North Rockies. It exists over most of the province. But the weather just didn't seem like it was going to do much. And we updated the forecast in the morning when we found out that the weather was changing. And then when we found out even more, especially after the second fatal accident occurred, about how sensitive that snowpack had become in a relatively short period of time, then we issued the special warning, which went out on Thursday for the weekend and is in place now. And then we added the Cariboos when we got more information about the Cariboos after we issued for the Rockies. Because like I said, the Cariboos have been a pretty dry spot for information for us. So we sent our field team from the North Rockies into the Cariboos to try to get some information about what's going on in the Cariboos.
I was going to say too, I think a lot of the mistake or the problem that a lot of people have is that if you're sitting in Prince George, you're 2,500 feet lower than we are here in Wells. So you look at your forecast for the day, whether it's summer or winter, and it's going to be dramatically different than what we see here, even though it's just a raven's flight away. And what I do like about Avalanche Canada forecasts, even in the summertime, is that they're really geared for the people who, whether, you know, and a lot of our members, they're loggers, they're truck drivers, they're bush workers, or they're explorers. And the weather reports they're looking at are for downtown Quesnel, and it doesn't really speak much to what's going on as soon as you go 20 kilometers out of town and start climbing up into the hills, right? So I really find that Avalanche Canada forecast is very useful, and people should look at it even though it's July sometime.
Yeah, the mountain weather forecast is specifically designed for backcountry users. Lots and lots of different people in different walks of life and different activities use it. In the wintertime, it's obviously geared towards avalanches. In the spring, it's geared more towards melt and the freshet in the spring for flooding. And then in the summer, it switches to thunderstorms and other types of serious weather events like that. And then in the fall, we switch it back to kind of avalanche focused. So it's something that's good for everybody all year round. It is a very large scale forecast. So it's not going to tell you exactly what's going to happen on the slope or in the valley that you're planning to head to, but it gives you a bit more information. And then there's other tools on the internet like spotwx.com, which many people are probably familiar with, that can give you a more local forecast right where you're looking. But it takes a bit of training and takes a bit of experience to use those more specialized products. It's not something that everybody can do just off the shelf kind of thing. It's something that requires a bit of training. So
one of the things we've been trying to do with Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers this last almost 7 years is educate people on the science of weather and what the maps mean. Yeah, so just to finish too, I was going to say a month ago or so, I made a video. I was shoveling a roof, and even then was a period where the instability become relatively weak with the snowpack, and I was able to kind of dig underneath and force the top layer to slide off on its own.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's not the most recent snowfall that I'm worried about, Joey. I'm worried about the deeper layers that formed earlier in the season that are being loaded up and have this extra weight from the most recent snowfalls. I think you might start something in the upper snowpack that might not look that bad or might not feel that bad, especially if you're a good rider on a powerful sled. You can get out of small avalanches. You have a lot of power there. that a skier or a snowboarder doesn't. So you have some advantages as a sledder with, good skills in smaller slides, and people are used to kind of dealing with those, and that's great. I mean, I think people are doing a great job at keeping themselves safe from those surface avalanches, and they're also a bit more obvious, right? They're kind of like, oh boy, it snowed 40, and every time I touch a slope, it kind of sloughs off, but I can power out of it, and then you kind of get a little bit overconfident, and then you get a little bit more aggressive, and you get a little bit more overconfident, and pretty soon you're on a big slope where that small avalanche or the weight of your sled, or you start digging because you're powering hard, and you hit the layer that's 40, 50, 60, 80, now 100 centimeters down in some places, and then you get a really big slide. And that's what happened in the North Rockies. That's what happened on the 23rd in the Selwyn range of the North Rockies, just east of Valemount. Wasn't even sledders, it was skiers, so not even as much weight as a sled on the slope, low down. They were down at the bottom of the slope or near the bottom of the slope, and they triggered a chain reaction that started down there and transmitted up through the snowpack into the start zone, and the whole slope came down on top of them. So that's the condition that I'm really worried about right now, especially for sledders. We're kind of used to and have the power to deal with smaller surface avalanches. These big, deep ones, and if you get that layer that's from January 24th, it's down 40, 80, 90, 100 centimeters, depending on where you are. If you get that layer going, you're going to see big avalanches. Look at some of the photos online right now, 400, 500 meters wide, running 800, 900 meters right to the valley bottom. And even for sledders, if you're not on the edge of it and get out of it right away, these things are not survivable. They're big enough to smash your pickup truck to smithereens. So it's a weekend, I think, to be quite cautious about what you're planning on doing and where you're going. The things that you've been seeing for the last few days or the last weekend might have changed significantly since the last time you were out.
I just heard a big piece of snow come off my roof, and the sun hasn't even started hitting my building yet today. So there's a clue, right?
Yeah. There's lots of clues out there, but I guess what I'm saying is this January 24th or even the early February layer that we're talking about in our forecast, those layers are deep enough that they're not really showing you much in the way of clues that deep. There's some clues on the surface for sure.
Those were the ones I was digging in my video a month ago too, right?
Exactly. They're from the cold clear snaps that we had. The January cold clear snap clear spell wasn't that cold, but the February clear spell was pretty cold. And during those times, you get those kind of facety, sugary, loose, unconsolidated surface layers that are great for riding on. But when they get buried, they kind of hang around for a long time, depending on what happens with the weather. And those are the layers we're worried about right now. So don't underestimate what's going on deep below you. Just because you don't see something on the surface or just because little things are happening on the surface. I'm just really concerned that people are going to underestimate the seriousness of the situation. And probably it's changed since the last time you've been out. If you haven't been out in the last few days, it's changed significantly in the last week. Kind of reached the tipping point here.
We got big snow coming here again tonight. So that brings me to my last question. We do have some warming and cooling coming ahead. So how long do you think this instability might last for before the weight of it settles the pack down some?
Well, it depends a lot on what happens, how deep it is right now and what kind of load it's got on it right now. And it depends a lot on what happens in the next storm. The west side of the Cariboos tend to get more precipitation than the east side of the Cariboos. I would suspect, and I'm just speculating here, that the east side of the Cariboos, where the snow is a little shallower and where the amount of new snow that's fallen recently is not as much, I think the layer is going to last longer and be more sensitive to triggering there for longer than on the west side, where you have a little bit warmer temperatures, more snowfall, more weight pushing down on it, to kind of squish it down and get it bonding. That said, because of the lack of kind of data throughout the Cariboos, it's really, really difficult for us to get too specific. But if I were a betting man, I would say it'll probably last longer in the east and the north than it will in the south and the west, just because of the way the weather patterns are coming in here. How long? I don't know. You tell me. Keep sending me min posts and I'll start telling you how long I think it's going to last, right? If you keep seeing cracking and you're seeing big avalanches a week from now, it's obvious that it's still hanging around, right?
I literally
these layers can last for weeks. We've seen layers like this that were formed in January or early February still perform well into March and even into April. And quite frankly, I've seen a mountaineering fatality in August based on a layer that formed the previous November. So they can, that's unusual. It's not, I don't think it's going to happen with this one, but they can last a long, long time. And people tend to forget about them because nothing's happened. And then you get a snowfall that adds a bit of load, and then the sun comes out in March and warms things up and the temperatures rise, and somebody hits the wrong spot on the slope near a big rock or a tree that's just sort of single point on the slope. That's a weak point in the snowpack, and boom, whole snowpack off.
I had to swim to get to my truck yesterday. It was that. And if we get that extra 20 centimeters they're saying might come here tonight, then, I just can't imagine it's going to get any better for the next while. So be careful out there.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for talking to me, Karl. And I hope we can chat again sometimes when there's news.
Sure. And just a quick reminder, everybody, make sure you got your gear with you, transceivers, probes, and shovels. Make sure you know how to use that stuff. Make sure everybody in the party knows how to use that stuff. Practice with it, train with it before you go out. So if something does happen, you got the gear you need to take care of it.
And take a course too. Take a course too.
Yep. Thanks
right on, Karl. Have a good day. Good luck out there.
Yeah, thanks.